This morning we're going to take a look at the MongoDB role read. And before I get started, I do want to point out that in the previous video, the way that this playlist works in the previous video on this playlist, since this is a subscriber-only video, which is titled How Roles Operate, that I would suggest looking at before looking at this one. That being said, if you, for whatever reason, stumbled across that one, or this one, a video, I should say, before the other one, look at that because there's some specific information, basically general information about roles, and that way you kind of understand a little bit of the context of this. So this morning we're going to be talking about the role read and where that would be useful at and kind of some basic information about it. The first thing to note about the role read is that it does provide some privileges. It does provide some authority. For instance, there is the person with the role of read can use the operation collstats, C-O-L-L-S-T-A-T-S command, and that basically provides some storage statistics for a given collection. Okay, that's what that does. It can also use the DB hash, which supports config servers. They can also use the command DB stats, which also provides storage statistics for a given database. And then they can look at doing the find, which is kind of, I hate to say that's kind of self-explanatory. Obviously, read, you're going to be able to use find. And then finally, the other thing that they can do, which is maybe a concern depending on your application or not, but is kill cursors, right? And that basically means they can actually kill various cursors on whatever collection they have the authority. Okay, so that might be the concern of this role. So who should have read access to a database? Like, in other words, who would we not want to give, or to a collection, again, if we're using Mongo 2.6, who do we not want to, or who do we want to give read access to? In other words, why wouldn't we want to give them write access? And I'll give you an example, and that would be, for instance, stakeholders, usually the end user of our data. They should be able to look at it, but as far as tampering with it, they should not be able to tamper with it. And so let me kind of just explain what I mean by that in terms of the logic there. So let's suppose that we have, I'm going to use the stock market as kind of an example. Let's suppose that we have a data set that involves trading in stocks, and we were to give a trader, the traders would be the end user, so they should be reading the data, but we were to give a trader write access to the data, okay? So in theory, that shouldn't be bad because this trader is making our organization a lot of money. Let's suppose they're leading a team of traders, they're making our organization a lot of money. However, suppose that the trader, and this happens in organizations unfortunately, let's suppose they go rogue. In other words, they decide that they could make more money by betting against the company than by trading with the company. And so what they do is they betray the company, if you would. They write data that are corrupt, and so they go into the database and edit the data, and now and then they leave the corporation, let's suppose, and now we have people who go and they dig around in the data and they trade on the basis of that, or they purchase securities even though the data are wrong. Okay, so, and again, it may seem like an exceptional example, but you never know. The reason why a trader may go rogue is there might be a disagreement between people at the company, right? And the person might get angry, or they might get upset. And these things happen. This is a reality of working at organizations in the US. This is a reality actually of working at organizations anywhere. People are emotional, right? And so they may actually get revenge in a way, or get even with someone. Or again, if you have competing trading teams, they may again undermine another team. It depends on how the organization is structured, but for the most part, the end user, the consumer of data, the reader of data, should never have write access, because there will always be situations in which there will be the temptation that they may go in and change values when they shouldn't do that. And you never want a person to have that ability, okay? So basically, reading data is something in which anyone who might have incentive to edit values in a way to undermine others should only have read access. And you want to always imagine in this situation the worst case scenario, not the best case scenario. It's like, well, our traders would never do that. Okay, so what's the worst case scenario where they're incredibly angry at the company, people have disrespected them, what do you think then? Okay, suddenly it's a little bit different. So the roles in terms of read are the end user, the stakeholder, and it is a stakeholder that if the person were to go rogue, they still would not be able to do anything to undermine a trading team. I think in this case, the only thing they might be able to do is kill cursors, so kill anyone else who's reading those data, but they're not going to be able to go in and access the data and edit the data and change it and corrupt the data, you name it. So that's something to consider, and that's just an example in using stocks. This is true with anything. I'll give you another really fast example to keep this as close to 6 minutes as possible. Imagine that you're in an organization like, I can't say the name of the company because I don't want to get sued, but there was an organization who had a huge security breach recently, I think twice, lost customers' credit card information. That organization may have had, it could have been an inside job, probably not, but it may have had people who had too much privilege. And so even then, when it comes to customer information, limiting read access is very important. A lot of people should not have write access. So read access is something that will keep your organization very secure. Anybody who could potentially go rogue and really hurt the company should more than likely only have read access. There are exceptions. Obviously, administrators could always go rogue, but there should still be, that's one of those situations that's acceptable because they are the administrator. That should still be restricted to very few people.